Hi friends. This is one of the better crops that I've been able to put out. Broccoli looking good too. And here's just a picture of my time-lapse equipment. Really high-tech equipment here. It's a Raspberry Pi and a camera module. My focus is always on sunflowers because broccoli are relatively easy to grow, but the sunflowers are a little tricky. The good thing here is very few hulls, very few seed hulls, and most of the plants are at the right stage. There is, let's see, this one has some true leaves coming out. That's usually I would like to harvest that one maybe a day prior to today, but most of them do not have the true leaves. So the growth is fairly even. No low spots. There are some less mature plants in there, but for the most part, very happy with how this one turned out. About 300 grams harvest, and here's the seed bed. I did not see any mold or any problems. Looked okay. About 250 grams of broccoli. And here's the seed bed. Nothing that concerns me at all. So that's a yield. I guess I would like to say I would have had a bigger harvest. It was fairly easy to clean, not a lot of hulls, but those are the sunflowers. And here they are together with the broccoli. I'll let this dry off a little bit and mix it and then pack it. So I have 5 good servings. They're averaging about 105 grams each. And that's my target. I would have liked to have more yield, but I have met my target and I've got food for 5 days here. Here's a diagram that shows the schedule or order of events for this crop. On the top you'll see I have days numbered here. I'm starting with 0. Day 1 actually refers to after 24-hour period. That's when day 1 starts. So it's a little odd. I'm starting with 0, and there are actually 10 day periods in here. I could have put a 10 right here. This point here is equivalent to day 10. And I show the light is off for the first 4 days, or through day 4, and on day 5 the light turns on for 16 hours and is off for 8 hours, and that continues through the rest of the crop cycle. The pump runs for 60 seconds every 6 hours, and that is the same through most of the cycle except for the last day, the last phase, and where it runs every 12 hours. The fans run for 5 seconds every 10 minutes during this first phase, and oops, this one is incorrect. That should be 5. In the second phase, the fan runs for 5 seconds every 5 minutes, slightly more often. And in the last phase, the fan runs continually. The fan is also set to turn on at a certain temperature controlled at 83 Fahrenheit or 28 Celsius. the fan will turn on above that temperature and will turn off below that temperature. I have heaters that keep the box at a controlled temperature. These were observed temperatures, and you can see that essentially 73 Fahrenheit and 23 Celsius were a baseline. This is the heat set point, and when the temperature recorded by the microcontroller falls below this point, the heat turns on, and then there is a hysteresis number. You've got the heat set point plus hysteresis. When you get to this number and you cross it, the heat turns off, and usually the heat will overshoot a little bit, and then it will drop back down again, and the cycle continues. This is just symbolic here. Actually, the heat would run between 5 and 10 minutes, and then it would be off between 10 and 20 minutes. So it's not necessarily 6 hours on, 6 hours off. I have 3 phases shown here. Germination phase is these first days, and then on day 5 we switch to grow phase. In grow phase, I increased the temperature slightly. By this time, the plants are in condition that they can handle higher temperatures. There's less chance of mold. I've increased it slightly, and on day 5 through the end of day 8. This is the grow phase, and the additional heat is done using a sunlight boost, which essentially means when the light is on, I add a number to the heat set point. So I raise the heat set point, and then I also raise the hysteresis point. And when the light is off, the numbers are exactly the same as during the germination phase. During harvest, I turn the heat off. I want to slow the growth, and I want to dry the plants out a bit. I turn the heat off, and I run the fan continuously, and the pump cycle is every 12 hours, not every 6 hours. So essentially I'm trying to cool down the plants and let them not be so wet when I harvest them. So this diagram is an attempt to show what happens when I program my microcontroller, and this is a copy of the program that I use, and all of these numbers here are changeable by the user. This heat set point essentially is the thermostat. If you want a hotter temperature, you increase this. And this is essentially a voltage reading from a thermistor, and it's not a temperature, but it's a voltage reading, and that's how my microcontroller gets the temperature and decides what to do. Lights are on 16 hours, lights are off 8 hours. The start time for light is day 5. Grow phase starts on day 5. Harvest phase starts on day 9. And now notice all of these numbers can be changed. Pump on time is 60 seconds, and then the pump is off, waiting for 6 hours. And same in germination as in the grow phase, and harvest phase it's 12 hours. I did see that the plants were quite wet, so I'm probably going to change the grow phase to 8 hours, giving a greater delay between pumps on time. And germination fan, I'm running for 5 seconds every 10 minutes. I'm going to make that more frequent and run it every 5 minutes. And during the grow phase, I did run 5 seconds every 5 minutes, and I'm going to increase that to 10 seconds every 5 minutes. The fans are not running very much. So these numbers actually come from my Arduino sketch, which this is what gets loaded into the microcontroller, and this is where I can make those changes and adjust the chain of events or the timetable for this crop. So let's take a look at the time lapse and see how this worked. The time lapse will be starting right here as day 5 begins. The first time the lights turn on, mainly because without light I can't really use the camera, and then it does not show the dark period between. So you will see 5 days of growth of sunflower and broccoli.